Thanks for coming out tonight. Appreciate everyone showing up. It's a good turnout. Really happy to see everyone here. All right, so I'm going to talk tonight about HealthKit and what you can do with it. So a little side story. I forgive. I apologize to those of you who were here last time and had to hear this. But basically, I got this sweet bike set up the other day, and I was like, all right, I'm all ready to exercise. And then I decided, wouldn't it be cool if I had an app that could track my heart rate while I exercise? So like any good programmer, I spent about 12 hours writing an app before I actually got on the bike. And I probably spent more time writing this app than riding that bike so far. So hopefully that'll change. But this was kind of just an experiment, and I thought I'd turn it into a talk. So here we go. So introducing HealthKit. So how many of you all have know what HealthKit is? Have used it on your phones? All right, decent number. So HealthKit came out with, I guess, iOS 7, 8? Can't remember. But it's a fairly new technology. Apple made a big deal about it. There's nothing super special about HealthKit. It's basically just a database to store a bunch of your health data. So picture it as a data store that's really smart about handling different value types and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's just a database. So nothing crazy going on there. I'm sure you all have seen Apple's Health app that kind of lets you view it. But again, nothing that wild there. So what can we put in this database of HealthKit, right? A whole ton of stuff. Jennifer made this awesome GIF of scrolling through the list, but they've got a ton of things in there these days, right? So you can put things like body measurements in there, so you can store your weight in HealthKit, and you can track that over time. You can do fitness measurements, so you can track your calories burned during a workout, or your walking and running distance, your exercise minutes. Some of this stuff is getting tracked on your phone today, even if you don't have an Apple Watch. The walking and running distance comes off the motion code processor and goes into HealthKit automatically. So if you want to play with HealthKit data, good news, you've already got some. You can store nutrition in there. Yet to find a really good food tracking app. It's just not very frictionless, but if you want to store that type of stuff in there, there are tons of apps out there that'll let you input what meal you just had, and it'll store a meal across all these different groups, like how many calories it was, how much fiber it had, etc. We'll do sleep analysis, so I'm big into this. I use an app on my phone to track noise levels while I sleep, so it kind of shows me my sleep quality when I wake up, and it shows me how long I slept the night before. And then it'll do vitals like your heart rate, blood pressure, stuff like that. So today we're really going to focus on mainly the heart rate, as well as pulling out your age and dealing with a workout, which I'll show you. Let's see. Okay, so what apps use HealthKit? Obviously, the sweet app I wrote for this demo. Don't get too excited. The icon looks pretty, but that's all Jennifer's work. The app is pretty plain. For those of you wanting to dive into the stuff a bit more, I highly recommend Gyroscope. It's a great app. It plugs into HealthKit and a bunch of other stuff, but basically it'll give you a graph of your heart rate for the past month, and you can see it visually, which is kind of interesting. I'll track a few other things. Here's an app, Compass, that we built for Healthways that pulled in all kinds of stuff from HealthKit to try to show you correlations. So it would pop up cards if your blood pressure was super high that day. It would say hey, feeling stressed out, maybe you should take a break, things like that. So there are a ton of apps out there starting to leverage this, and I imagine there'll be even more, especially now that there's Google Fit on Android. I think we'll start seeing more and more of these integrations. Before you build a HealthKit app, please read the App Store review guidelines. They've got some pretty strict stuff in there about, you have to have a privacy policy. If you're going to be shipping this data around and it's personally identifiable, you got to be HIPAA compliant. A ton of stuff there, so I'm not going to go through those because they change all the time. But check out the App Store review guidelines before you dive into this. All right, so how do you code for HealthKit? All right, so first thing you need to do whenever you make a HealthKit app is you got to ask for permission to access a user's HealthKit data store. So you can either request read or write permissions, or both, for each individual type of thing that you want to request. So for our app, we're going to be requesting permissions to read a few things. We're going to be requesting permissions to write a couple of other different things. So let's take a look at that really fast. Switch over here. So in my app, the first thing that pops up is kind of this onboarding view controller. It's got a button that says allow HealthKit access. If you tap it, I've made this kind of HealthKit manager that will let you request permissions. So if we dive into that, here you can see this setup. So basically, you're just going to pass arrays of what you want to read and what you want to write. I've kind of pulled these out up here, but you can see like, here's the HealthKit object type for age. So
Hey,
object
Rob,
type, yeah.
Can you make the code just a little bit bigger?
Yeah. I think there's a presentation large.
Yeah, there is.
Oh, well.
Wow.
Can anyone read that? Maybe you can still see that. All right, so here I'm just pulling out these identifiers from HealthKit. So I want, the age characteristic. I want heart rate. I want active energy burned. Yeah, calories here, right? And I'm going to pull out this workout object type that I'll show you that we're going to use later. So basically, I want to be able to read a user's age, their heart rate, and the calories that they burn during a workout. And I want to be able to write into HealthKit this workout object that we're going to construct from doing a workout and calories that they burn during that workout. So real simple here, health store request authorization to share types, read types. Pass that in. I didn't handle the error here, but basically you get a completion telling you that this is done. Now, HealthKit is kind of weird in that you don't really know what a user allowed or disallowed access to. You just know that they saw the modal. So they do this to protect users' privacy. Say you download an insurance app and it wants access to how much you walk every day, right? And maybe you don't want to give that information because you don't want to tip them off to the fact that you're a programmer and you sit around all day. So they don't necessarily tell you that the user said, no, I'm not going to allow permission to that. Let me show you what this looks like in the app. All right, so run this really fast, allow HealthKit access, calls that method, and now you can see all the different types that I want to read and write. I'm going to say all categories on, and I'll click allow in a minute after we get through a little bit more of the presentation. Okay, so now you have permission to read and write the things that you need to write to HealthKit. Let's start with reading from HealthKit. So how do we do that? There are several different ways. They've made it pretty easy. So I say HealthKit's just a data store, but they really have given you a ton of convenience methods to pull this data out. A really simple one that we're going to do is read a user's age, and that's just what they call a characteristic. It's something that never changes, right? We can pull their birth date out. A user's birth date doesn't change, hopefully. But you can also pull out sample data. So they have all these different queries that you can do. You can just do a plain query if you want to know, give me all the heart rate readings between these two dates. You can pull that out. You can do a statistics query where you say, give me the average heart rate over a particular range of time. You can do statistics collection queries, which will give you kind of time series data. So you can say, give me my average heart rate every hour for the past day, and it'll pass that back to you. 24 objects, your average heart rate there. There are correlation queries. So a lot of times Apple wants you to create these what are called HealthKit correlations. So if you log a meal, they don't want you logging calories separate from fiber, separate from saturated fat. They want it all kind of tied together. So if a user pulls out that calorie information, they're able to see oh, there's some related data to that, and they're able to pull that out. There's a source query. So this is kind of neat. So everything that writes to HealthKit is considered a source. And so you can sort your data. So if you find that you've got an app, maybe this workout app isn't properly coded, it may muddy up the database. It may give you bad HealthKit data. So you can pull it out by source if you only want to see particular objects. And you can do an activity summary as well. So that's similar to what you see on the Apple Watch. All of these HealthKit objects have a UUID. They've got some metadata that you can attach to them. So if you want to put your own fields inside of HealthKit, you can do that. So you may have, you may be tracking someone's sleep, but you also want to put in, the ambient light level. Like you could track that with a metadata tag on there. It'd be specific to your implementation, and only your app would probably know how to read it. But you could still store extra data in HealthKit that isn't necessarily described up front. There's a source revision to tell you like what version of the app wrote data in there, and a device if the HealthKit data came from a device.
Usually like a third-party Bluetooth or something.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
you'll see like Apple Watch or something like that in there. Samples also have additional properties. So those are all HealthKit objects, but then they're also like a subclass of that called HK sample, and those have a type start date and end date. Some of them, the start date and end date's the same. If it's like a blood pressure reading, it's like just a one-off thing. If it's something more like sleep, it's going to have a start date and end date on it. One of the really nice things about HealthKit is that it's got this HK unit class that lets you convert basically from any type of unit to any other type of unit. So, if you're building an app and you decide you want to make it available in Europe, for instance, like maybe you want to show the weight in kilograms and not in pounds. So they've got a really easy way for you to do that. Basically use HK unit to just convert that value over to the unit type that you want. So you'll see what unit type comes out of HealthKit, and then you can convert it over if you want to.
Does that tie into the locale APIs at all, or is it manual?
Yeah, it does. So there's, I believe there's kind of a default, like for locale unit that you can pull out. Not entirely sure on that, but I'm fairly sure that you can. All right, so let's read a user's age in the HealthKit app. I'm going to actually have to put a birth date in here. So for those of you who hadn't seen this is the health app. Sure. All right, so I'm just going to go with their default. So see, this says 35 next to it, so hopefully in the app.
There it is.
Parent age is 35. Okay, great. So what does that code look like? Here, really simple. We're just kind of grabbing the birth date from the health store that we instantiated, and then computing the age based on that. So that's reading something out of HealthKit and displaying it on the screen. All right. Not only can you query data from HealthKit, but you can also stream data from HealthKit. So this is really handy, especially for this app that I built, where you want to get constant updates and always be aware of like what the latest value for something is. So you can set observers on different HealthKit types if you want to just get the data as it comes in. We're going to use an anchored object query. An anchored object query basically says, give me everything past this particular spot in HealthKit. And then it'll continuously give you those based on that anchor, and it'll keep updating it. So you're only getting the stuff, between like the time that you wanted it to start and whenever you say it to end. A couple other queries here if you want to stream. So let's take a look at that. Let's see. So in code here, we're just making an HK anchored query. I'm passing a few things in here. I'm passing in an anchor, so you want to keep track of your anchor. And I'm also passing in a results handler and update handler. I will show those in a little bit. But, pretty simple to start this query on the health store to start streaming that HealthKit data to your app. Here's another one for active energy burned, if we want to track that. All right, and then the other thing we may want to do is write to HealthKit, right? So you can store your own samples in there if you have permission. Three-step process is really not too bad. Like, you get an HK object type for the sample that you want to record. You create a HK sample object based on that type. So that object type may be a heart rate reading, and you want to do a sample heart rate that's 60 beats a minute or something like that. And then you save the object to the HealthKit store. So what does that look like? We're going to make a workout in this app, and basically, here we are creating our type. Sorry, this is kind of hard to read up here, but we're going to make a type of workout that we want to write into HealthKit, and then we just call health store save object on that workout. It writes it into HealthKit. Here we're actually going to add some additional samples to that. We're going to store the calories burned during the workout as part of that. So we can read and write data from HealthKit. Anyone have questions on that yet?
One question.
Yeah.
So it seems like with the health app, like it will track certain things for you, like steps and everything,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't track like a lot of other things. Like, is there a separation between like things that are tracked automatically by the HealthKit app and things that have to be written to HealthKit from other sources?
So essentially that stuff that's getting automatically tracked in HealthKit is coming from a source.
Okay.
And so most of that stuff that you'll see if you just have a phone and no Apple Watch, you'll see like steps and stuff like that. That's coming from the MotionGo processor. They've hooked that up. But if you look under like the source for what that data came from, it's going to say it came from your iPhone.
Okay.
So you could technically sort those things out and look at the source and say, oh, this is from an iPhone, this is from something else. But can we take a second to enjoy this amazing gift that Jennifer found today? All right.
I haven't heard Bush in a while.
Anyway, all right, so let me show you the app in a simulator, and then we'll talk a little bit more about how it works. Okay, so I've got my main app over here, and then I've got my WatchKit app. Let's say continue here to finish onboarding. So I've got a few different workouts that you can do in the app. So let's pick CocoaHeads Challenge. I will need a volunteer in a few minutes to do this live, so if you want to start stretching, now would be the time. Basically, say start workout. It's going to start a workout on the watch and on a phone. So this is a 5-minute workout. And what I did with this app was I want to figure out a way to stay within a target heart rate. So I don't know if you all are familiar with like high intensity interval training. You know, that's all focused on like what your heart rate is, right? You want to be in certain zones of your heart rate. You want to move in between them. And so for the CocoaHeads Challenge, this is just like, I think it's like 50 to 60% of your max heart rate based on that age that we pulled in earlier. So this is showing red, showing that like we're way above what our target would be. It'll go white if we're on target and green if we're below. So kind of speed up or slow down, red or green. But yeah, let me show you a little bit of
Where's this data coming from?
the
right
code.
Exactly.
Yeah, good question. So the simulator actually gives you this data. And I was really surprised when I opened this up and started running it. But yeah, it starts streaming
Just
fake
data?
heart rate data, from the device, which is great for debugging. I don't know if you all have debugged an app on the Apple Watch. Painful, right? Like extremely painful. It takes forever. So
Can you pick like a heart rate range? Can you specify it all?
I didn't see any way to do it. There may be a way to do it. I just didn't find one. This one kind of seems to go at random between like 90 and 130. This kind of updates.
Probably some Apple intern had to.
Probably so. It's like Tim Cook's like live heart rate right now. It's streaming into the app. All right, so I set out to build this app, and I didn't totally understand the implications of building a watch app. So a couple things to note here. One is that we're actually going to start this thing called HK Workout Session on the Apple Watch. The Apple Watch normally gives you a heart rate reading every 10 minutes or so, but we obviously want it way more frequently than that. So if you start an HK workout session on the watch itself, you'll start getting more frequent heart rate updates. So you can set the type of workout there too, and it'll make smart adjustments to save on battery and stuff like that. So let me show you setting that up. And I'll post all this code.
I want to throw a curveball at you.
Yeah, please.
Battery consumption.
Mm-hmm.
If you know how you can look and see how much that app, particularly what percentage of the hour of the day or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Have you found that your app? I mean, somebody does an hour-long session or whatever that might take.
Sure.
20% of the day's juice.
I haven't looked into that. I don't think it'll actually be that bad. Bluetooth Low Energy is made so that a device could operate on like a coin cell battery for a year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm fairly certain it's just sipping little bits of battery.
Okay.
the HealthKit stuff isn't too performance intensive either.
I was just thinking
Depending
about
on what
your
you're doing.
screen being on all the time. That was,
Yeah, I mean, that would probably suck the life out of it.
Yeah.
That's a good point. All right, so a little bit about what's happening here. So in my active workout view controller, which is that one that you saw where I press start workout, I'm actually having to use the watch connectivity manager to communicate to the watch. One thing that I found out when I was building this is that while, HealthKit stuff is synced between the watch and your phone, it takes a while for it to get over there. And so I kind of had to use watch connectivity as a shim for most of this stuff. So I'm actually manually sending that heart rate up. I wanted it to be reading straight from HealthKit, but it just doesn't update on the app, and that's not very fun to look at. So anyway, I'm sending this message over, and over here in my WatchKit extension, I'm catching that message, and then I'm starting a workout from my workout manager. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So really it's in this workout session controller. So this is specific to the Apple Watch. This isn't available on iOS, but the Apple Watch has this concept of HK workout session. Pretty simple to set up. You just create a workout session, you pass in a few things, like this will be indoor cycling, so I'm passing that in. You start the workout, so I'm setting myself as the delegate here, and then I'm using the health store, that shared store that we have, to start the workout session. I'm just passing in that value there. Obviously ended at the end. There's plenty of delegate methods to tell you things about that workout, but that's how I'm getting the rapid heart rate stuff to go. Let me show you one other thing. So workout manager here also has a HealthKit workout observer that I built. So this is where we're doing all the querying of the data. So here we set up a heart rate anchor. Here you can see us using HK unit, right? We want beats per minute, so we can actually just pass in a string, and HealthKit's smart enough to figure out what that is. Same thing for active energy here. I'm just creating a HK query anchor, and then setting this unit here. So bare 1 kilocalories for my workout. So when this observer starts, it basically tells my HealthKit manager, like, hey, take this anchor and start streaming a heart rate from there. Let me show you these update handlers. So here's the heart rate update handler. So this is kind of the callback we get from HealthKit whenever there's new heart rate data available. So here I'm saving off the new anchors so that I don't get duplicate data, and then just deleting any heart rate samples that were deleted since the last time I checked, and adding new ones that were added since the last time I checked. So nothing complicated here. I'm just throwing stuff into an array. Updating the heart rate. So here's an example of using that kind of HK unit stuff. So I get this heart rate sample, right? This is the last sample that I got. I grab its quantity, and I say double value for unit, and I pass in that heart rate unit. So that was counts per minute, right? So that's going to give me back beats per minute, and I can pass that around my app and do whatever with it. All right, so yeah, I went over this, but keep this in mind. If you're going to be building for the Apple Watch, hopefully most of your HealthKit stuff won't be directly on the Apple Watch, but if it is, stuff to watch out for. All right, who wants to do a demo, like a live demo? You want to do it, Paul?
I'll do it. Why not?
All right, come on up, man. Paul's gonna give us a demo. All right, so come on over. Let's get this wrapped in here. How big's your wrist? We may have to. I got a larger band here.
No, I'm small.
All right. All right, you're gonna take the CocoaHeads challenge.
Go ahead. I need my glasses if I'm gonna look at that. Sure.
All right, so one thing to note here is that unfortunately Apple Watch apps only work when the screen's on, and I mean only work when the screen's on. So give it a tap so that we can update that. Will you go ahead and launch? Actually, did it unlock for you?
Yeah, it's
Sweet.
Let's go to the
Yeah.
It's like we are not responsible for any accidents that occur during this day.
I'm sure.
You signed that waiver, right?
Yeah.
There's no training.
All right, it's good.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
All right.
So
Can you broadcast?
I can't share that one. So I wrote kind of the iOS app just so that we could kind of see this on the screen. But
All right. Well, it says start a workout on your iPhone to get started.
all right, you ready? All right, I'm gonna start it. Oh,
Watch your distance.
is that watch app open? Try opening the watch app again.
It's running. 5
There we go.
minutes.
All right. Now the simulator's a little bit faster than the device, so it's gonna take a minute for this first one to come in. Oh,
Whoa.
all right. Getting there.
Am I there yet?
I definitely have a bug in the app because it shouldn't be red right now, but yeah, you can slow down a little bit even. Give it another tap. Let's see what it's doing.
What's the target range right now?
So the target range.
Oh, it does that.
Oh yes, it's going to give you
122.
some haptic feedback there. Target range is 50 to 60% of your max heart rate. So you're actually over. I made this super easy, so you may want to turn down that resistance or something. But anyway, if you want to hit end workout on there, should be on there. Nice. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Paul. All right, so you are welcome to come up and try it out afterwards. Let me show you one more thing. So we saved that workout, right? So now if I go into the health app, and I look at fitness and workouts. All right, here you can see the workout that we just recorded. So cycling, you almost made it a full minute. I think my calorie conversion's off. But yeah, so we managed to port that data into HealthKit. Cool.
How are the calories calculated?
So it gives you calorie samples back. I think I have a bug in my conversion code.
Well, doesn't it? It talks about your. I mean, I guess your age and weight. And,
Mhm.
I mean, some of those things it uses to.
So Apple's vague on how they're tracking that stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was
I think I would guess that it's based on the heart rate and your age and some stuff like that, but I'm not entirely sure. They magically compute those and store them in HealthKit for you. So
Is that HealthKit open source, right? Or is that something else?
it's
about
Research
CareKit?
Kit. Yeah, Research Kit and CareKit, I
CareKit.
think now, yeah.
CareKit, just open that.
It seems a little surprising that that each app is trusted to make that conversion themselves, because there's already
Yeah.
so much like inaccuracy in what the watch is tracking to begin with.
Yeah.
You would think that they would at least normalize that.
It's really odd. So luckily we had the sources thing. So if you build an app based on HealthKit and you find out that, Fitbit is terrible at tracking something, then you can filter by source, right, and not show those readings in your app. I'm not sure why Apple actually recommends that you put the calorie content into the workout, like attach it to the workout object. Seems like they would just pull that out or pull it in automatically. So I'm not sure why they're having developers doing that, because it seems like it would be extremely error prone. I definitely haven't had an earlier version that put me like 6 times over my exercise for the day. Like I was like, all right, like so many calories burned. But yeah, still kind of a new thing, but definitely some interesting things you can do with it. Not everyone's operating with it. Like I think Fitbit is famously not putting their data into HealthKit because they want to own your data. But if you care anything about porting this data around, like I recommend trying out apps that actually support HealthKit.
Is there any incentive to developers to publish it there other than just goodwill and hoping users care?
Apple may pull you on stage for a keynote. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, not really. I mean, well, there's what's that?
I said users ask for it for sure.
Yeah, I think users are going to come to expect that.
Insurance companies.
Yeah. I think another big thing about HealthKit is remember, like, you can technically store all of your data in there. So I didn't get as far in my demo app as I wanted to, but Eventually, I want to build this out so that it'll display all the workouts that I've done in the app, right? I technically don't need a data store for my app to do that.
Did you work on rings? Did you work on that at all?
No. It looks interesting, like that they have an interface for that now. But I think HealthKit's important for that type of thing. Like you could carry your data with you from device to device. Do remember to do encrypted iPhone backups because that's the only way you're going to get your
Right.
HealthKit data to a new device. So if you get a
For
new
my
device
taste.
and it's all gone and you start caring about this stuff, it's kind of painful to be like, oh, and my heart rate from the past year is gone. Whatever you were going to do with that. But yeah.
One thing I did one that's just uses core location and just a timer.
Yeah.
Just a distance and time or whatever to calculate. But I found onboarding was like real important, at least with beta testers, of making sure to allow those permissions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like like most permissions on iOS nowadays. Like you kind of want to prompt the user and tell them why you want access to their heart rate, like
Right.
before you do it. And HealthKit's especially bad because it's a lot more privacy intrusive than a push notification or something like that, right? So yeah, you definitely want to do onboarding well to tell users like why you're requesting access. And that HealthKit permission dialog is like most other iOS permissions in that you get one shot at it. So if you mess it up and your user decides
they can't dig
it's
through to undo it.
sketchy and they won't do it, yeah, they've got to go into the settings app or into the health app to allow access later, and that's kind of a pain in the ass. So excuse my language.
Do you just get like null if they didn't give you permission for the heart rate or something? Like what do you see?
You basically see that there are no samples.
Okay.
So you can ask for them, and you just think that there's no data there. So that's kind of what I was talking about with that weird like privacy curtain where you don't know that the user didn't allow access, you just know that there's nothing in HealthKit for that.
But you can always write some sort of like prompt that then redirects them with a deep link into settings to change it back. So if
Yeah.
the app is having the poor experience, track it back that way.
Yeah, it's a little bit different than other permissions in that other permissions you're able to tell that the user denied access, and then you can like put something on your settings screen that says like, tap here to allow push notifications, takes them out to the setting app. Yeah. The unfortunate thing about HealthKit is you don't really know, so you can always show that dialogue in your settings screen, I guess, and pop them out to HealthKit, but you don't specifically know that you don't have access to a certain piece of data. Anyone else have questions on this? Yeah? Jack?
Yeah, so that I noticed that in that method it said get birthday or date of birth with the error handler or something like that.
Mhm.
So if they're not going to return, I mean, I'm not asking you to like look into Apple's mind on this, but
Yeah.
what kind of errors would they return, I guess, on that situation?
Well, one error they can return is that there is no, well, no, that's not true. I think it's just if you haven't requested permission. There's kind of three states to a permission,
Okay.
right? Like, haven't asked for it, like, has asked for it, and is authorized.
So you do know,
Well,
you don't know. If
has asked for it isn't technically true, but
Okay, right, sorry.
you've got kind of a haven't asked for it yet state. So I think that's where that error handler would be invoked.
Okay.
My code never has errors, so I've never seen that. Yeah.
You thought you were wrong once, but you're mistaken.
Yeah. Do you have a question, Patrick? Or?
Yeah, so I know you mentioned something about App Store review and like if you're taking data out of HealthKit and sending it somewhere else. Like, are you allowed to read all of someone's HealthKit data and send it somewhere, some backend, like collect a bunch of data that's allowed? You just have to do something specific?
Yeah, you're technically allowed to do that. You do have to include a privacy policy that Apple will review, and there are different policies for like HIPAA compliant and non-HIPAA compliant. So if you're just sending their health data, you can get away with non-HIPAA compliant. If you're sending that plus some sort of identity for them, yeah, then you got to go the HIPAA compliant route. There are a few other things that Apple have recently put in the guidelines, like you have to make it pretty apparent to your users why you're using HealthKit. I think you have to put something in the App Store description about HealthKit. So there are a lot of little weird, tricky things in there that they're still trying to figure out, because obviously this is pretty intrusive, and I don't think a lot of people realize that it's happening in the background, or how much you could infer about someone's life just by knowing their step count for the day, right? Like you could figure out a lot about someone if you had that granular access to that data. So They're trying hard to keep it under wraps, but yeah, theoretically, yeah, you could do that.
I don't know if anybody ever heard, like, they were issuing Fitbits to people, and, they were getting, I guess, credit for so many steps a day or something to that effect, and so a lot of folks would just tap it on their desk, and yes, they were sitting there eating their Cheetos or something.
Totally, yeah. We have a friend who will hook their Fitbit on their dog and let it go out. Get plenty of steps that way. Well, let's have questions on this stuff. I kind of
had an issue with with the permissions modal. It's more of an aesthetic thing maybe than anything, but when it comes up, it's like coming up over a black screen. It doesn't seem to come over the app. Is
that seems new to iOS 9 to me. Like, I feel like in iOS 8 it didn't do that.
And I feel like it also throws an error of some kind. This seems to be kind of a benign error.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they broke in there. Like, I was really happy that they gave us that all categories on button, because like it used to be a real pain to like request like 100 permissions to someone, and they're like, they'll never go through it. But yeah, I'm not sure what that is. Hopefully.
Yeah, I tried moving around everywhere in the app. Where the request was made, just never. Yeah.
I just hope my users think it's Apple's fault. But yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. You have almost zero control over that, right? You just say request permissions and it pops up. So I don't know what else you could really do to prevent that. But yeah.
So when
Yeah.
you're using a new SDK, what's your preferred method of diving into it?
Preferred method of diving in. Kind of what I did with this. Like I've already done a little bit of work with HealthKit, but for this it was basically I had what I thought was an interesting problem that I wanted to solve. Like I wanted to work out at a proper pace, right, for myself, and basically base that off of heart rate, so that as I got more fit, like I'd be working out harder, and doing some of that interval training stuff. So for me, I kind of had that problem to solve, and then I went out figuring out like how I could solve that. So HealthKit was a good one here. I didn't think I'd have to learn watch connectivity, had to do a bunch of that stuff. So those things will snowball sometimes, but I don't know. I like to just start coding and see where I end up. Like the very first thing I had was an Apple Watch app that tracked my heart rate and would store something in HealthKit, and that was a pretty quick thing to set up. And then trying to figure out how to get it, looking nice for a demo in terms of like pumping it to the iOS app was a whole
Are
nother
you
thing.
using like strictly documentation from Apple, or is it like sometimes go to Google?
There are tons of good tutorials out there, honestly, about this stuff. Even some example projects that you could pull code from. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff out there. I don't know. It's new, but it's not like super new. Like people are definitely written articles on it. Awesome. Yeah.
Did you find any apps out there that, or I guess, how many apps did you find roughly that accomplish the same functionality, or just general HealthKit apps?
There are 1,500. 1,500 HealthKit apps.
Really? I didn't know that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you mean a specific like type of thing, or?
Yeah, I mean, were you able to? Because I mean, the framework's been out for I don't know what, like a year, 2 years, roughly. But I feel like I don't hear about people or developers using it a lot as much as probably Apple would want them to.
Yeah.
So I guess I was just kind of curious of what kind of like high quality apps that you found out there.
I mean, 1,500 surprises me. I really enjoyed the gyroscope app. Do you remember some of the other ones, Jennifer, from when we did Compass?
I don't know which ones specifically.
Was it MyFitnessPal that did the decent food tracking?
MyFitnessPal will do food tracking. There's a blood pressure one that's free that will check it with the light.
Yeah,
That's
I use Sleep Cycle like as my alarm clock and my sleep analysis thing, so it just pumps data directly into HealthKit.
Strava, I think, writes stuff like that.
It does, yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
there are.
Loggings has some
Yeah.
hardware that supports it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, like a scale and blood pressure, cuff, and things.
I think people are doing it. It's just like there's been an interesting battle between the companies that want to totally control that data and run an API off of it versus like companies who are fine with sharing it just on your device with Apple.
The when I was doing the test flight with my little thing, people were like, you can do that already native to the, it's already on your phone type thing.
Sure.
With Apple Watch and everything. So that was like, why bother if Apple's already doing it? So I think that the trick is to build something that does more and easier.
Yeah, I mean, this one's maybe slightly different than Apple's workout
Yeah.
app. It does basically the same. Like if you compare samples that you take from the workout app to samples with this example app, like for the most part, this stuff lines up. The thing that I was looking for was I couldn't find an app that would let me set like heart rate, targets and do a workout based on that. So, anyone else have a question?
Going back to permissions, when do you think is the best time to ask?
Definitely after the user is bought into your value proposition.
Okay.
So
Not
really,
logging.
yeah, I say as late as you can possibly wait, honestly. If a user is about to start a workout and you ask them for HealthKit permissions, they're going to be like, okay, I get that. Like, I know why you're asking for that, right? If they just install an app and the first thing you do is ask them for permission to that stuff, they may get a little weirded out and not do it. So since you only get one shot, I usually try to wait as late as I can. It all depends on your app, though. You may need that data up front. Like, your app may just be a HealthKit viewer, right? Like a workout viewer or something like that you want access. You're going to need access to that in your controller. So.
I may have heard this wrong, but I was under the impression that like the Apple Watch won't take heart readings when it's in motion. Is that right?
When it's in motion?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Like, from what I've seen, it's basically like every 10 minutes it does it. And if you start this HK workout session, like it does it more frequently.
Right.
I still didn't see a specification on how frequently it does it. Their documentation sort of hints at the idea that depending on what type of workout session you start, they may track it differently. So if you're doing weightlifting versus like cycling, they may do it at a different interval.
Right.
I'm not sure. I know like, we were getting a consistent like every 10-minute heart rate reading, and then for a while, one version of iOS was like you get maybe one an hour if you were lucky.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to have kind of come back. I don't know. I don't know if they're checking it more frequently. Have you seen that?
The hardware in the back of the phone? There was, the watch, there was a light.
Mhm.
Is that showing that the heart rate
That's
being
actually the
measured?
heart rate like measurement.
Being measured?
Yeah.
So when I handed you the phone, the watch, it was still on.
Yeah.
Okay.
It takes it a second to
Okay,
realize
yeah.
that it's come off. I'm not sure though. Have you seen
Yeah,
it
so
like kick off with
I
motion?
work for a startup that, our whole thing is kind of working with health data, and we kind of take a cautious approach to like the heart rate stuff.
Yeah.
For now, just because it feels like it's still kind of trying to solidify. Like, I think you saw like Fitbit got sued because somebody was trying to do essentially like what you're trying to do with the app.
Uh-huh.
And this person had some condition where like they really weren't supposed to get over a certain
Oh
heart rate,
man.
and their kind of personal trainer was like watching them with it. So it turns out they were in like a really dangerous spot for them. So they turned around and sued them, and so we're kind of like looking at that and like kind of trying to be cautious about it. But and the research I did on it, I thought I read that the Apple Watch just doesn't take a reading while it's in motion, which would kind of make sense in the sense
I
that
would
like, that's
believe
where
that.
Fitbit kind of screwed up was when they're running or whatever, it starts getting like wildly inaccurate.
I don't know how accurate it is. I know I've read a few things, but like the blog posts I've seen, like one will be like, "Yeah, Apple Watch is right on," and the next one I read says it's totally inaccurate. So,
Right.
I think a lot of it depends. They talk about it needs to be
How tight
like
it is.
stuck to your wrist
Yeah.
and things like that. So, that's
So
really
we-
interesting though. Like,
Yeah, we've got like he's called a health coach,
Uh-huh.
kind of on staff, and he's tested all the devices. And I think he said of all like the consumer devices you can get, Garmin's got one that kind of straps across your chest.
nice.
Yeah.
And it's by far the most accurate. But he said it's really the high intensity stuff's where it gets off. It's really good at getting resting heart rate.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to be really careful because we like are presenting data to like health professionals,
Sure.
assuming that that they're going to assume it's accurate.
Right.
So that's why we just
Yeah.
kind of like held off on heart rate. We're just kind of researching right now. 'Cause
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd be interested in seeing like someone wear like a bunch of like sensors at the same time just to see what they pick up. Been the Bionic Man, like.
I think that makes sense because, like, any exercise bike or anything you get on that tracks your heart rate, there's always a disclaimer that's like, this reading may be inaccurate.
Yeah.
Don't use this. Don't take this as
If you
being,
feel dizzy, stop.
Yeah.
100% true. And I feel like if you make an app that does the same thing, you probably need that same disclaimer for sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to make sense of like what's in HealthKit. Like I've noticed that these crazy spikes
Mhm.
don't actually seem to be reported. Like I think like they're averaging them out or something when they actually. Like they know that that's not accurate. Like there's no way.
Outline.
Sure.
Yeah.
Spikes up to 190, 200, something like that.
Yeah.
That's not right. But I don't know. Yeah, it's still kind of a mystery.
If I publish this, I better put a serious disclaimer on this app. Like, honestly, the original idea was like, I don't want to kill myself the first time I get on this thing because I haven't worked out in a while. So let me like build an app that keeps me from going like past my max heart rate. Like,
Right. Well, I think what you can do is you can still pause and then look at it.
Sure.
You know, it's not move for a second and get a reading, and it would still be, you know, useful.
Totally. I mean, you saw like the simulator was pumping out heart rate readings way quicker than the Apple Watch was, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, you know, it's difficult when you test like to tell if that's because the screen's going off. I mean, it's hard to like.
Well, see, I was curious in this scenario because, like, with it being on a fixed spike, you probably would move a lot, so maybe it would be pretty accurate. I don't know.
Yeah, I know one of the workouts I did, I had to like I just didn't get readings for like 5 minutes or something like that, and I like snugged it up and pulled it up my wrist a little bit, and then they started coming in. But that just seems like superstition. Like I'd love for Apple to shed some light on how they're actually doing it, so we know, because it's getting important, right? Like you said, if a doctor is going to take this data at its word, like, and diagnose you with heart arrhythmia or something like that, like, you want to make sure that's right and not just some noise and algorithm accidentally put on there.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting space. It's weird to see our devices go from like toys that were fun to use on the internet to now like they're getting into our health. It's just weird.
Yeah.
Sweet. Anybody else have questions? Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.